Marcus Chen's morning ritual hadn't varied in 3 years, 4 months, and 12 days. Wake at 600. 2 cups of synthesized coffee. Systems check of Outpost Epsilon 9. Hydroponics inspection. Maintenance rounds. Wukan. Afternoon data collection. Evening transmission to Earth Colonial Authority. Dinner while watching archived entertainment from the homeworld. Sleep. Repeat. Today should have been no different as he shuffled barefoot across the cold metal floor, rubbing sleep from his eyes. But the console was blinking amber, proximity alert. Not the usual supply drone, but something larger, something unscheduled. Computer, identification on approaching vessel. Unknown configuration. Non-human design parameters. Estimated arrival. 17 minutes. Marcus's heart quickened. In 3 years, not a single unscheduled visitor had approached his lonely outpost at the edge of human space. The nearest colony was 14 days at maximum burn. He dressed quickly, methodically checking the outpost's minimal defenses, not that they would matter against any serious threat. Epsilon 9 was a scientific installation, not a military one. The alien craft that gracefully docked at his primary airlock 16 minutes later didn't appear threatening. Its hull shimmered with an iridescent blue-green material that seemed almost alive, pulsing softly. No visible weapons, about twice the size of a standard shuttle. The airlock cycled, and Marcus held his breath. She entered like flowing water, tall and willowy with skin the color of pale jade that seemed to shimmer with subtle patterns of light beneath its surface. 4 arms balanced gracefully at her sides. Large, almond-shaped eyes the color of opal dominated a face that was almost, but not quite, human in its proportions. Behind her, 4 smaller figures huddled close, their wide eyes fixed on Marcus with unsettling intensity. "Greetings," Marcus managed, his universal translator struggling to initialize. "Welcome to Epsilon 9. The tall figure tilted her head, bioluminescent patterns beneath her skin quickening along her neck and temples. When she spoke, her voice was like harmonics played on crystal. "This unit expresses gratitude for reception. I am designated Silara, primary nurturer of lineage Xanvos. These are my seedlings." She gestured to the children. For children they clearly were, with her lower set of arms. Marcus had studied all known spacefaring species during his training. These were Valaxians, an advanced civilization that had limited contact with humanity. They were known to be telepathic, reclusive, and to consider humans somewhat primitive. "I'm Marcus Chen, Earth Colonial Science Division. How can I help you?" The translator struggled with her next words, rendering them in fragments. "Seeking. Compatible. My bondmate returned to the cosmic current. Seedlings require new resonance. Your mind pattern." The tallest child stepped forward suddenly. Unlike his mother's jade coloring, his skin had a bluish tint. He appeared to be the equivalent of a human 10-year-old. "Mother means that father is dead," he said, the translator handling his speech more effectively. "His mind is gone. Without a second parental resonance, our developing neural patterns will unravel. We will become disconnected." The mother, Silara, nodded, her luminescence dimming to a somber blue. "My bondmate's final calculations indicated compatibility with specific human neural architectures. You matched the criteria. We have traveled far to find you." Marcus blinked in confusion. "You came looking for me, specifically." Silara extended one long-fingered hand toward him. "May I demonstrate?" "Words are insufficient." Against his better judgment, Marcus nodded. Her cool fingers touched his temple. The universe exploded behind his eyes, a cascade of foreign emotions, fragmented memories, mathematical patterns beyond his comprehension. Colors he'd never seen. Music made of thought. And through it all, an overwhelming sense of loss and desperate hope. When she withdrew her hand, he was on his knees, gasping. What do you want from me?" he managed. Silara knelt beside him, her children watching with solemn, ancient eyes and young faces. I need a father for my children, she said simply. You are compatible. You must eat. Silera placed the plate of synthesized protein in front of her eldest child. Adapting to local sustenance is essential for transition. Tariq's bioluminescent patterns flashed crimson. Adolescent defiance transcended species, apparently. It's dead matter with no memories, he said, pushing the plate away. There is nothing to taste beyond crude chemical reactions. Marcus watched the exchange from across his small dining area, where this impromptu family dinner was rapidly becoming a first-contact diplomatic crisis. The twins, Vesh and Mila, were cautiously nibbling their portions, their face patterns cycling through confused yellows and greens. Only little Elena seemed to be enjoying the meal, her eyes closed in concentration. What's she doing? Marcus asked, pointing to the youngest child. Silara's upper shoulders performed a gesture that might have been a shrug. Elena experiences all sensory input most intensely. She searches for flavor memories in your food. Flavor memories. For Valaxians, taste is incomplete without psychic impressions. Seeds remember the soil. Animals remember their lives. Plants remember the sun. Your synthesized proteins remembered nothing. As if on cue, Elena's eyes flew open, glowing with excitement. I found them. Human hands touching protein matrix, machine components, engineering problems, stars seen through viewports. She thrust a forkful toward Marcus. Try, I can share. Before he could protest, Elena's small fingers touched his wrist. Suddenly, the bland protein cube in his mouth exploded with sensations. His own memories of adjusting synthesizer settings, frustrations with supply shipments, loneliness under alien stars, all reflected back through the perceptions of a child who experienced reality fundamentally differently. Marcus gasped, choking slightly. That's intense. Elena beamed, her skin shimmering with pleased pink pulses. You see now, Silera said quietly, why isolation is devastating for Valaxian young. Without proper psychic nourishment, their developing minds wither. Marcus hesitated. I understand your children need something. But why me? Why the human? Silera's luminescence dimmed. My bondmate, Telix, was considered radical. He studied human consciousness as his life's work. Valaxian society is telepathically connected, a vast network of shared consciousness that values harmony and consistency. But humans, she paused, searching for words. Humans are chaotic. Tariq interjected with undisguised disdain. Primitive, emotionally unstable. Unique, Silera corrected gently. Telix discovered that human minds possess what he called quantum consciousness, neural patterns that exist in multiple states simultaneously. Unpredictable. Creative. Emotionally dynamic in ways Valaxians are not. Marcus frowned. And this helps your children how exactly? The Council of Elders declared Telix's research heretical. Silera continued. They feared it threatened our hierarchical thought castes. As punishment, they severed my children's deeper connections to our collective consciousness. Without intervention, they will become permanent outcasts, mind orphans. The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. You're asking me to be there. What? Psychic foster parent. A non-Valaxian consciousness, specifically a compatible human mind, can help reshape their developing neural pathways, create new connections to replace those severed. And what happens to my mind in this process? Marcus asked, suddenly wary. Silera's patterns shifted to a deep, solemn blue. Change, Marcus Chen. Irreversible change. Tariq suddenly stood, his patterns flashing angry red. He fears it. See how he recoils. Humans always fear what they don't understand. We should never have come. The boy's frustration manifested physically as the utensils on the table began to vibrate. The lighting flickered. A crack appeared in the reinforced window overlooking the hydroponics bay. Tariq. Control. Silera commanded. Too late. The window shattered. alarms blaring as emergency force fields engaged to prevent decompression. The twins screamed in unison, their fear patterns creating disorienting visual echoes across the room. In the chaos, Marcus found himself instinctively reaching for Elena, who had begun to cry. The moment his hand touched her shoulder, a current of pure grief flowed between them. Not his, not hers, but shared somehow. "I'm sorry," Tarek whispered, his anger collapsing into shame. "Father would have helped me control it." For the first time, Marcus truly understood what was being asked of him. "I'll attempt a preliminary bonding ritual," Marcus told Solara the next morning. "Not promising anything permanent, but I'll try." Relief cascaded across Solara's skin in waves of gentle blue-green light. "Thank you. I must prepare certain elements. It will require several hours." Marcus found himself alone with 4 alien children, a scenario no xenobiological training manual had ever covered. "So," he said awkwardly, "what do Valaxian children do for fun?" The twins exchanged glances but remained silent. Tarek maintained his aloof posture, deliberately looking anywhere but at Marcus. Only Neri, the second eldest at what appeared to be 9 human years, approached him. "What sounds do you collect?" she asked. "Sounds? Oh, you mean music." Her patterns brightened with interest. "Yes, music. Do you possess harmony archives?" Marcus smiled. "I've got the complete Terran classical collection. Would you like to hear some?" He pulled up his music library on the main console. Neri studied the interface with remarkable intensity, her slender fingers hovering over the display. "I cannot read your symbols. Will you select something significant to your personal development?" Marcus scrolled through the collection and selected Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. As the first notes filled the room, Neri's luminescent patterns began to pulse in perfect synchronization with the tempo. "This is extraordinary," she whispered, her patterns shifting through colors Marcus had never seen her display before. "May I taste it properly?" Remembering Elena's food-sharing experience, Marcus hesitantly extended his hand. Neri's cool fingers touched his wrist, and suddenly the familiar music transformed. Each note became visible as shimmering geometric patterns. Harmonies manifested as complementary color fields that moved through and around each other. The emotional crescendos became tactile sensations, ripples of meaning that transcended mere sound. "This is how you hear music?" Marcus gasped. "This is how we hear it now," Neri corrected. "I am sharing your emotional response patterns and integrating them with Valaxian sensory processing. Look." She pointed to where Elena had begun to sway, her tiny body trailing after images of light. Even Tarek had turned toward the music, his expression softening. While Neri explored Earth's musical heritage, the twins had discovered Marcus's 3D design terminal. They were manipulating his engineering schematics with alarming speed, transforming his practical designs into impossible geometric structures. "What are you doing to my atmospheric regulator design?" he asked, peering over their shoulders. "Fixing Vesh, or perhaps Mila." He still couldn't tell them apart, replied simply. "Proper human dwellings need more dimensions," added the other twin. "Too linear. Minds get trapped." Later that night, as Marcus prepared for sleep, he noticed something odd about his reflection. For just a moment, he thought he saw faint patterns of light beneath his skin, and when he closed his eyes, stars he'd never seen before wheeled across his inner vision. "You're experiencing preliminary neural adaptation," Solara explained when he mentioned these symptoms the next morning. Her patterns registered surprise. "This is unprecedented. The children have already begun bonding with you instinctively, without formal rituals. Is that bad?" "It is unknown. Remarkable." Her patterns shifted thoughtfully. Perhaps telex was more correct than even he realized. Human neural plasticity exceeds our understanding. Marcus found himself surprisingly pleased by her admission. Maybe you Valaxians don't know everything after all. For the first time, Solara's patterns formed what might have been a smile. "Perhaps we do not." In that moment of mutual humility, something changed between them, a genuine connection forming alongside his bond with her children. "The ceremonial elements are prepared," she said. "Are you still willing to proceed?" Marcus looked at the children, Neri still swaying to music only she could fully perceive, the twins arguing over dimensional theory, Tariq watching him with cautious hope, and little Elena who had fallen asleep clutching one of his old paper books. "Yes," he said. "I'm ready." The supply drone arrived precisely on schedule, a mundane intrusion of routine into what had become the most extraordinary week of Marcus's life. As he supervised the automatic unloading, a message alert flashed on his comm unit. Chen, Epsilon 9. Administrative notification. Received diplomatic communique from Valaxian Central Authority requesting interview with any personnel having knowledge of citizen Celera Xanvos and offspring. Advise immediate response. Colonial Diplomatic Corps representatives en route. ETA 72 hours. Marcus felt a chill. He found Celera in the observatory, her bioluminescence muted as she gazed at the star field. "The Valaxian authorities are looking for you," he said without preamble, "and human officials are coming here. In 3 days." Celera's patterns flickered with what he now recognized as resignation. "The Council moves more quickly than anticipated. We must accelerate our preparations." "What aren't you telling me?" Marcus demanded. "Is this about more than your children's neural development?" Instead of answering, Celera placed her palm against the observatory glass. The star field seemed to ripple, and suddenly Marcus wasn't seeing it through the viewport, but from within it, a telepathic vision. Ancient Valaxian astronomers in robed garments, manipulating three-dimensional star maps, sections being deliberately removed, sealed away in crystalline structures, a spiral arm of the galaxy, where human space now existed, completely absent from their charts. "My bondmate discovered the great omission," Celera's voice echoed in his mind. "Our astronomical records were altered thousands of years ago. An entire sector, your sector, intentionally erased." The vision shifted to Telex, a tall Valaxian male with striking cobalt patterns, comparing ancient and modern charts, becoming increasingly agitated as he made his discovery. "But why?" Marcus asked within the shared consciousness. "Someone wanted our species separated," Celera replied. "Telex believed we were once connected, perhaps even one people in the distant past." The vision faded, leaving them again in the physical observatory. "The Council fears this knowledge," Celera continued aloud. "It contradicts our doctrine of Valaxian exceptionalism. When they come, they will reclaim my children as property of the state, to be re-educated and studied." Marcus's mind raced. Under human law, they can't just take sentient beings without due process. But you'd need official status. An idea formed. What if I registered the children as my legal dependents? Created a bureaucratic shield. Celera's patterns brightened. "Would your authorities permit this? Interspecies adoption isn't common, but there's precedent. We'd need genetic compatibility testing to prove viable guardianship." Within hours, they were in the medical bay. Marcus watched nervously as the station's automated system analyzed samples from himself and the children. "Analysis complete," the synthetic voice announced. "Genetic compatibility assessment. Positive. Anomalous neural pattern congruence detected." "That's surprising," Marcus muttered. "I expected a technical match at best." "Display full results," Celera commanded. The screen filled with complex molecular structures and neural mapping comparisons. Celera's patterns registered shock. "This cannot be," she whispered. "Your DNA contains markers. Valaxian markers. Dormant, ancient, but unmistakable." Marcus stared at the results. "That's impossible." "Not impossible," Celera said. "Your unusual neural patterns aren't random mutation. Their heritage. The station's ancient medical database confirmed it. Trace Valaxian genetic markers existed in certain human bloodlines, including Marcus's family. The contact wasn't erased completely, Solara said softly. It's in your blood, in your brain structure. This is why you're compatible. This is why the children could bond with you so easily. The implications were staggering, not just for their immediate situation, but for both species' understanding of their origins. How many more carry these markers? Marcus wondered aloud. The computer chimed an alert. Adoption registration template ready. We can explore those questions later, Marcus said, focusing on the present crisis. Right now, we need to complete this process before any authorities arrive. Ready to make this official. Solara's patterns formed the now familiar expression he'd come to recognize as her version of a smile. My children already consider you family, she said. Now your laws will too. The human shuttle arrived first, a sleek colonial administration vessel that docked with military precision. Marcus waited at the airlock, adoption documentation loaded on his tablet, the children and Solara strategically positioned behind him in the main living area. The airlock cycled, and Marcus's heart stopped. Leading the three-person delegation was a face he hadn't seen in 7 years, his estranged brother, Daniel Chen, now wearing the uniform of a colonial administration director. Hello, little brother, Daniel said, his professional smile not quite reaching his eyes. Quite the situation you've created. Before Marcus could respond, the station's alert system chimed. Incoming vessel. Valaxian Diplomatic Registry. Perfect timing, muttered the woman behind Daniel, introduced as Legal Attaché Rivera. Nothing like conducting sensitive negotiations with both parties present. Marcus led the human delegation to the station's conference room, where introductions to Solara and the children were made with diplomatic stiffness. Daniel's gaze lingered on the children, his expression unreadable. The adoption documentation appears properly filed, Rivera acknowledged, reviewing Marcus's tablet. Though there is significant concern about setting interspecies adoption precedents without thorough review. The children's welfare is at stake, Marcus argued. They need a compatible psychic resonance pattern to prevent neural collapse, finished a melodious voice from the doorway. Everyone turned to see the Valaxian delegation enter, led by a statuesque figure whose elaborate patterns of bioluminescence marked him as high-ranking. The children's patterns dimmed in what Marcus now recognized as fear. Elder Zorax, Solara acknowledged with a formal gesture. You honor us with your personal attention. The Council's concern for the offspring of lineage Xanvos is paramount, Zorax replied, his patterns conveying something Marcus couldn't quite interpret. We offer rehabilitation and reintegration. The disconnect can be addressed in our specialist facilities. These proceedings are premature, Marcus interjected. Under Colonial Code 47B, any contested guardianship requires demonstration of superior care capability. Daniel shot Marcus a surprised look, clearly not expecting his hermit brother to quote legal code. Zorax's patterns shifted dismissively. Human law has no bearing on Valaxian citizens. It does when they're on a human station and have filed for dependent status, Rivera countered, seemingly energized by the legal challenge. As the adults engaged in increasingly technical diplomatic language, Neri suddenly stepped forward. We can show you. All eyes turned to the child. Show us what, precisely? Zorax asked. The connection. The truth. Neri looked at each of her siblings, who nodded in sequence. We can create a shared space where everyone can communicate directly. Before anyone could object, the 4 children joined hands, forming a circle, their patterns synchronized, pulsing with increasing brightness. Tarek extended a hand toward Marcus, who took it without hesitation. Helena reached for Daniel, who after a moment's hesitation, accepted her small fingers. The conference room seemed to dissolve around them, replaced by a neutral space of gentle light, where thoughts flowed like visible currents. The humans gasped collectively as they experienced direct telepathic communion for the first time. In this shared consciousness, cultural barriers temporarily dissolved. Emotions became perfectly transparent. Concern, fear, wonder, bureaucratic frustration, all visible as colored currents swirling between participants. The moment of connection shattered when Elder Zorax attempted to probe deeper into the children's memories. Marcus felt the intrusion like an electric shock and instinctively formed a mental barrier, a skill he shouldn't have possessed. The shared space collapsed, returning them to the physical conference room. Fascinating, Zorax said, his patterns betraying excitement rather than diplomatic calm. The children have already developed substantial neural synchronization with the human. The integration is more advanced than our models predicted. You're not here to help them, Marcus realized aloud. You're here to study them. They're an experiment to you. Daniel's expression shifted as he looked from the children to Zorax to his brother. Is this accurate, Elder? Are these children research subjects? They represent evolutionary advancement, Zorax replied, not denying the accusation. Their development impacts all Valaxians. Father, Tarek said suddenly, addressing Marcus directly for the first time. Don't let them take us. The word hung in the air, a declaration more powerful than any legal document could convey. The complete bonding ritual is our only option now, Celera told Marcus after both delegations had retreated to their vessels for the night. Once fully established, even the Council would hesitate to sever such connections. The psychological damage would be too evident. Marcus nodded, his newfound mental abilities already sensing the children's anxiety like distant music. What does it involve? A deep telepathic merging. Your consciousness and the children's will intertwine within a shared mindscape. It is not without risk. To me. To all participants. Human minds are not structured like ours. The process could damage both. In the observatory, now transformed with both Valaxian crystals arranged in precise geometric patterns and human meditation cushions, the family gathered. Daniel had asked to observe, standing nervously at the periphery. Why are you really here, Danny? Marcus asked his brother quietly. Daniel's professional facade cracked slightly. Official reason. To ensure colonial interests. Unofficially. When your name came across my desk, I needed to see you. It's been too long. Before Marcus could respond, Celera called them to begin. The family sat in a circle, the children positioned between the adults. Focus on the center crystal, Celera instructed. Allow your consciousness to flow toward it. Do not resist what follows. The crystal began to glow, responding to the children's innate bioluminescence. Marcus felt a gentle tugging sensation, as if his mind were being drawn from his body. The observatory faded, and he found himself in a labyrinth of his own memories. Each corridor represented different periods of his life. The children appeared beside him, their forms translucent but recognizable. We must walk your memory paths, Tarek explained, his usual hostility replaced with solemn purpose. To understand the patterns that shaped you. They moved through Marcus's childhood, birthday celebrations, school achievements, adolescent disappointments. The children experienced each memory from his perspective, occasionally stopping to examine emotional resonances with particular fascination. Human memories retain emotional context so vividly, Neri observed, studying the moment of teenage heartbreak with academic interest. Our species stores information and emotion separately. Eventually, they reached a sealed door pulsing with dark energy. Marcus instinctively recoiled. This holds your deepest pain, Elena said softly. We must enter to complete the bond. No, Marcus protested. You shouldn't see this. Shielding creates barriers to bonding, Tarek insisted. All must be shared. With tremendous reluctance, Marcus allowed the door to open. They entered his most traumatic memory, the shuttle accident that claimed his wife and daughter 5 years ago. Emergency alarms blaring. Structural failure warnings. Their terrified faces on the view screen during their final transmission. The children absorbed his overwhelming grief with unexpected composure. Instead of being crushed by it, each responded in uniquely Valaxian ways. Tarek stepped forward first, his hands reshaping the memory of the exploding shuttle. The destruction reversed, particles reforming, not into the original shuttle, but into a stellar nursery, where new stars blazed into existence. Destruction and creation share patterns, he explained. One becomes the other. Neri touched the frozen screams, transforming them into harmonic resonances that, while still conveying fear, became something hauntingly beautiful. The twins worked in tandem, restructuring the chaos of debris into fractal patterns of perfect mathematical order. Finally, little Elena simply embraced the memory image of Marcus's lost daughter, absorbing some of his grief into herself and offering childhood innocence in return. Valaxians never fully processed grief individually. Solara's voice explained from everywhere and nowhere. Our telepathic nature distributes emotional burden. Humans bear pain alone, a strength we never developed. As the children transformed his darkest memory, Marcus felt something change fundamentally within his consciousness, not erasing his loss, but integrating it differently. When they emerged from the labyrinth, both the human delegation and Valaxian officials were rushing into the observatory, alarms blaring. Marcus's body, still seated in the circle, had begun to emit faint bioluminescent patterns matching the children's. The bond is formed, Solara announced, her patterns radiating triumph. We are family now, in every way that matters. The hearing convened in Epsilon 9's conference room, hastily converted into something resembling a courtroom. Both human and Valaxian authorities had agreed to a joint proceeding, unprecedented in diplomatic history. Marcus sat with his newly bonded family, the subtle luminescence beneath his skin now visible to everyone. Medical scanners from both species monitored their vital signs and neural patterns. The physiological changes are undeniable, the human medical officer reported. Chen's neural architecture has been fundamentally altered. Certain pathways now mirror Valaxian patterns, while maintaining human characteristics. Likewise, added the Valaxian examiner, the children exhibit modified telepathic structures incorporating human emotional processing capabilities. The integration is elegant. Elder Zorax leaned forward. Fascinating adaptations, but irrelevant to our proceedings. The children are Valaxian citizens. Their genetic heritage belongs to our people. They are not research subjects, Marcus countered. They're children who need stability and care, which they found. Our bond is real. Daniel, who had surprisingly taken position with Marcus's legal team, stood. We propose a demonstration rather than further argument. The panel of officials agreed reluctantly. Marcus and Solara exchanged glances. This was their prepared strategy, to show rather than tell. With your permission, Solara began, we will allow selected representatives to briefly experience our family bond. 2 volunteers, Rivera from the human delegation and a junior counselor from the Valaxian side, stepped forward. Little Elena approached them, her bioluminescence pulsing gently. I will make bridge, she said simply, taking their hands. The volunteers gasped simultaneously. Though no one else could see what transpired, the effect was evident on their faces. Wonder, understanding, emotional revelation. When Elena released them, Rivera had tears streaming down her face. It's beautiful, she whispered. I've never felt anything like it. The Valaxian counselor's patterns displayed complex emotions. The harmony between thought patterns. It shouldn't be possible, yet it exists. Elder Zorax remained skeptical. Impressive, but singular anomalies don't justify fundamental policy changes. Daniel stood again. Actually, Elder, the medical analysis suggests otherwise. He projected genetic data onto the main display. Marcus's genetic markers aren't unique. Approximately 1 in 20,000 humans carry similar Valaxian genetic signatures, dormant until activated. And conversely, added the Valaxian medical examiner, seemingly unable to contain scientific curiosity, our preliminary scans indicate the potential for compatible neural structures in roughly 3% of Valaxian juveniles. Murmurs spread through both delegations. This is exactly why the children must return with us, Zorax insisted. The implications require controlled study. The room fell silent when Tariq stood. The eldest child, once so hostile to Marcus, stepped forward with newfound confidence. "I request permission to address the council," he said formally. When granted, he spoke not just with words, but with controlled telepathic projection that reached everyone present, a feat that caused the Valaxian officials to register shock in their patterns. "I once viewed humans as primitive," Tarek began. "I resented the idea of a human replacing my father. But through our bond, I've experienced something Valaxians have forgotten: individual emotional depth, the human capacity to contain contradictory feelings simultaneously, to grow through emotional pain rather than distributing it until diluted." His patterns shifted to include colors Marcus had never seen him display. "Being part of this family hasn't made me less Valaxian. It's made me more complete. Father doesn't replace my biological parent. He offers something different, but equally necessary. We are not research subjects or diplomatic pawns." Tarek continued, his projection growing stronger. "We are children who have found a parent who can guide us through our unique development. Separating us now would cause genuine harm." As Tarek spoke, everyone in the room felt the emotional truth behind his words, not just intellectually understanding, but experiencing the familial bond directly. When he finished, even Elder Zorax's patterns showed signs of uncertainty. The human chairperson cleared her throat. "I think we need to deliberate on this matter with greater care than anticipated." For the first time, the possibility of staying together seemed real. 1 year later, Epsilon 9 no longer existed, at least not as the solitary outpost Marcus had once called home. In its place stood Convergence, the first official human Valaxian cultural exchange center, its expanded structures gleaming in the light of the binary star system. Marcus adjusted the environmental controls in the main educational hub, his skin faintly luminescent with concentration patterns. He still wasn't used to his body betraying his emotional states so visibly, though the children found it endlessly amusing. "Atmospheric calibration complete for the new arrivals," he reported to Solara, who was arranging crystalline teaching aids on a low table. "Excellent. The juvenile delegation from Valaxian Central reaches us tomorrow." Her patterns displayed pleasant anticipation. 12 young ones, all showing neuroplasticity compatible with cross-species education. The diplomatic resolution had exceeded their wildest hopes. After 3 days of tense deliberation, both governments had recognized the potential benefits of controlled cultural exchange. Elder Zorax had eventually conceded, though Marcus suspected the promise of heading the scientific observation team had influenced his change of heart. Rather than separating the family, the authorities had instead built an entire institution around them, making them the cornerstone of an unprecedented experiment in interspecies cooperation. "Father, Father." Elena came running into the hub, her patterns flashing excited pinks and golds. "Uncle Daniel's shuttle is approaching. Can we meet them at the dock?" Marcus smiled. Uncle Daniel, once his estranged brother, had become a staunch advocate for the Convergence Project. Today, he was relocating permanently with his wife and 2 children to serve as colonial administration liaison. "Of course we can. Where are your siblings?" "Tarek is teaching human children basic telepathic exercises in the East Quadrant," Elena reported. "The twins are in the engineering lab, and Neri is preparing the welcome concert with the human musicians." They made their way to the docking bay, passing through corridors where humans and Valaxians worked side by side. Though still rare, it was no longer shocking to see humans with faint luminescence or Valaxians creating physical art, cultural cross-pollination in action. That evening, Convergence observed the solemn ceremony, marking the anniversary of Telex's passing. In the observatory where their family bond had first fully formed, they gathered with both species representatives. As Solara spoke of her bondmate's vision and sacrifice, Marcus felt a strange sensation beneath his skin. The bioluminescent patterns that had become part of him shifted into a configuration he'd never displayed before, one that several elder Valaxians recognized with gasps. "That is Telex's familial pattern," an elder whispered. "How is this possible?" The bond preserves patterns across generations, Solara explained, her own luminescence harmonizing with Marcus's. His consciousness honors Telex's memory. Later, as both humans and Galaxians dispersed, the family remained to observe a rare astronomical conjunction. Twin stars that orbited so closely they appeared as one entity, sharing stellar material across their boundaries. Like us, Elena observed, creating a memory artwork that combined both telescopic imagery and telepathic perception, a piece that would eventually be displayed in museums on both worlds, titled simply Family. As visitors admired the child's creation, Solara and Marcus found a quiet moment alone. "Do you ever regret accepting my plea that day?" she asked softly. "Your life would have remained simple, unchanged." Marcus watched his children, truly his in every way that mattered. Tariq discussing advanced mathematics with Daniel's daughter. The twins demonstrating a new dimensional model to fascinated human scientists. Neri composing music that blended human emotional dynamics with Galaxian harmonic structures. And little Elena, effortlessly bridging worlds with her art. "How could I regret finding my way home?" he replied, both in spoken words and the telepathic emotional resonance he'd learned to project. As he spoke, the faintest trace of bioluminescence followed the path of a single happy tear down his cheek, a visual manifestation of how much he had changed while remaining fundamentally human. Their hands met between them, human and alien fingers intertwined, creating a silent promise of a future where such distinctions mattered less than the bonds between them. Above them, the twin stars pulsed as one, their light illuminating the family that had become its own kind of constellation.